Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. So I'm taking a break in a busy day. I went out to do some errands this afternoon, early this evening, and the internet exploded while I was gone. So I figured I'd just release a real quick one. I've got a regular video coming out either tomorrow or Monday. But anyway, I wanted to talk real quick about Elon Musk's craziness about saying that he would potentially sell 10% of his stock, which is worth about $25 billion. And that's based on a poll on Twitter. So if you want to vote on it, have at it, man. I'm going to make the thumbnail of this video that tweet because I'm not going to edit this video. I'm just going to do this real quick off the cuff, and then I'm going to release it into the wild, and you all can talk about it in the comments. And my Discord channel has been going crazy about it too. Anyway, the deal is he's polling people, and he said he will abide by this. So I guess he's the dude, right? Because he's going to abide. But he said that he is going to abide by the decision that the poll makes about whether or not to sell 10% of his stock, like I said. And the deal is, if he sells that, he is going to owe an awful lot of tax for it. Now, he's a long-term tax holder. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It's somewhere around 15 to 18% of the money that he, sells the stock for, and minus the amount that he bought it for. But that's going to be negligible, because I'm sure what'll happen is, well, actually, I don't know. His finance people actually might make it one of the later stock purchases that he got rather than the first ones, because the cost basis is less. But anyway, whatever it is, it's going to be a very large amount. If the stock is $1,200 a share, right, and he sells 10% of that, it's going to be a huge amount of money, because the most he might have paid for that stock because of stock options and other things is maybe $100 or $200. So he'll probably be owing, or he'll probably be taxed on about $1,000 per share that he sells. And the tax rate, like I said, is somewhere around 15 to 18%. So, if he has $1,000 cost basis, that means he'd owe about $150 per share, or 15% of 25 billion would be about 2.5 billion, 3.25 billion, if I'm doing the math right. Anyway, so it's a lot of money, but there's several pieces that go into this. The first piece of this puzzle is that the Biden administration is talking very seriously, and they're saying it's just for the uber wealthy, but essentially what they're saying is that they're going to start charging people on unrealized capital gains. So the basic deal is, okay, let's just say that you have $100,000 in a savings account. And boy, I really wish I did have $100,000 in savings. Actually, I'd invest it if I did. But anyway, it would be nice to have that kind of money to play around with. But just to create a rough number, and let's say that you made 7% interest on that savings account because you have a very, very generous bank. That means that at the end of the year, you would make $7,000 of profit off that $100,000 that you had in the bank. And what would happen is the government would then tax that $7,000 at whatever rate they tax it for. It depends on your tax bracket and all of that stuff. So essentially what the government is trying to do, and they're saying right now it's just for the uber wealthy, but it could definitely trickle down. Many people are worried that the tax will trickle down to us normal people later on in life. The next couple of years into the future. But basically what they're saying is that the stock that you have on paper, if that's worth $100,000 and essentially you bought it for, let's say you bought it for $50,000, the stock, and now it's worth $150,000. That difference of $100,000, that they will tax that amount of money off the top. So if they're taxing it at 15%, you would owe $15,000 on that $100,000 that you don't actually have at this point. And that's kind of Elon Musk's point. He's the richest man in the world on paper, but that doesn't mean he has any actual liquid assets in cash, because he really never, I don't even know if he's ever sold his Tesla stock, maybe a tiny bit of it, but he basically has just owned all of this stock for ages and ages and ages. And I think the government is saying, hey, you're tying up effectively all of this money, and you've got all of this money, so we want a piece of it. But at the same time, it's not like he has billions of dollars of cash lying around. That would be actually stupid if he did. So what that means is, if the government comes about and says you're going to have to sell the stock, and he has to sell it in order to pay the taxes, that pretty much sucks for him. So I think he's kind of, maybe flipping the bird a little bit at the government, but also trying to get out ahead of this a little bit. The consequence for us normal people and us Tesla potential stock, purchasers, is that if he sells that 10% in any kind of short span of time, that's going to depress the stock price pretty drastically, right? You can't sell 25. If he just went out on Monday and said selling $25 billion worth of stock today and just dumped it into the market, it would the stock price would crash. It would probably go back to maybe $600 or $700 at a guess. Again, not a stock analyst, so do not take my word. Do your own research on this stuff. But it is really interesting to think about the fact that if he did that, the stock for Tesla would crash. It would have to, because essentially he's pouring money back into it. He's selling it. And so there's all sorts of shares. And if you have a standard supply and demand situation, suddenly there's a huge amount more supply. So that means that the price is going to go down. Just basic economics at this point. So that would be really cool for us in terms of, I guess if you wanted to sell Tesla stock at the same time, bad for you. But for anybody who wants to purchase more Tesla stock, this would be fantastic, because that means that we would be able to purchase some Tesla stock and we'd be able to grab it at a much, much reduced rate. And of course, it's going to go right back up again within a couple of months or something, because the supply and demand will work its way back out again. But in the short term, it could cause a massive, massive dip. Now, I have a feeling if Elon does sell this, if the poll comes back and he really does actually abide by what the poll says, and he comes back and sells it, he will probably do it in a much more regulated fashion, I guess, or conservative fashion, something along those lines. He will probably sell a little bit, right? So he might sell 0.5%, and then a few weeks later, another 0.5%, and then a few weeks later, another 0.5%. And hopefully, well, I don't know. I guess, again, if you want to buy the stock, it would be nice if he would announce it when he did it. But more than likely, he won't announce it. And so it will be up to people watching the market to suddenly see like a big spike in the amount of Tesla stock that's available. So it would be interesting to see what happens. Again, I think that some people have said that Elon should put this in, and they said he should sell the stock and give it to charity, or give the stock to charity so that they could either sell it or keep it. That's an interesting idea, but I also think this has something to do with the whole oh gosh, who was it? Was it the WHO? Anyway, it was somebody who was, I think it was the WHO, that was saying that they wanted $6 billion to solve world hunger issues. And Elon said, hey, if you show me a budget and you can show me how $6 billion will solve world hunger, I will sell that much money worth of stock and I'll give it to you, and you can solve world hunger. And so far, nobody has come back with any actual figures. So I'm not surprised at that, because I don't think $6 billion will actually do it. I think that was kind of a specious argument for somebody to make. But I do think that this selling 10% of his stock has to do both with Biden and the possibility that the very, very wealthy people might be taxed on unrealized capital gains. And it's also probably has to do with this hunger relief effort, because I think what he's doing now is he's thinking about, if he sells this stock, he can kind of get ahead of this taxation game. And also maybe just for the good of humanity. He has said that he doesn't really pay taxes, because all of his money is tied up in sort of permanent assets like stocks and things like that, or bonds potentially. I don't know what else he's got in his portfolio. I guess Dogecoin and Bitcoin as well. But anyway, he's got things that you're not really taxed on until you sell them. And so to some extent, he may also be doing this as a way of being a good citizen and saying, look, I don't pay taxes every year, even though on paper I've got all of this money. I don't actually make a lot of money every year in terms of actual income, so I can't be income taxed. And therefore, I also will do this in order to help out the United States, because I don't know, being taxed on 25, like I said, what was that? Something like $3.25 billion. If he's taxed $3.25 billion, it's not going to be a drop in the bucket for the trillions of dollars that are being spent on infrastructure and other bills at this point, but at least it's a gesture in the right direction. So it could be a bit of a middle finger, but also it could be a way of saying, look, I'm going to pitch in and try to help out the common person a little bit by throwing in some tax money to help things out. Whether or not the government spends that in a good way or not, that's up to them. But anyway, so that's kind of what's going on. Things are really freaking out. People are just going completely ballistic about this whole thing. But I don't think it's that bad. I really doubt that Elon Musk is just going to sit down and suddenly sell 10% of his stock, even if everybody says yes and he does abide by this decision. I think it would be parceled out over hopefully several months as a stock holder. But again, as a potential stock purchaser, I can always hold out hope that he'll just sell it all in a couple of days. If he does, we're going to get the sale of the century on Tesla stock. Again, not a financial analyst. Do your own research, but that's what I'll be doing. If he ends up selling his stock rapidly and the stock price crashes, honestly, even on the news of that, potentially on Monday, if the poll comes back positive and he says, yeah, I'm going to sell it, I would see that the stock price is going to go down. I don't know. It could also go up because people could suddenly be like, oh gosh, I want to buy it. But I think what they'll do is they'll want to wait for the dip. So they'll probably try to sell at a peak and then wait for it to go down after he sells and then purchase it again and move with that. I'm not going to do anything. I hold the stock. I've never sold any stock really. So I'm a long-term investor for sure. But I could see the market becoming very depressed, even on the news that Elon Musk might sell his stock. So we will have to wait and see what happens on Monday. But it's going to be a really interesting Monday morning with Tesla stock prices. My personal feeling is it's going to crash quite a bit. They could lose 10% of their stock price just on the possibility that Elon Musk might be selling his stock. But we'll have to wait and see. Again, do your own research. Don't believe me. I am not a stock analyst by any means. Anyway, just thought I would talk about this and see what you all have to say about that. The people on Discord that I'm conversing with right now, my Patreon patrons, have a lot to say about this, so it's been really interesting. And of course, if you're interested in joining the club, just check out the link in the description. In the meantime, have a lovely weekend, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.